doing my laundry right. No people doing my laundry right. Why is my shirt in the dryer pile?
I just left a first date that I was really looking forward to in under 2 minutes.
Can we ask who you voted for?
I mean, I just feel like that's a little personal.
I'm gonna kill a motherfucker for real now.
We have a bag of dog food. Because you're my dog.
I never realized that him liking me or not liking me or finding me sexy or attractive or interesting determined whether or not my children could eat.
Men aren't lonely enough. That's a loaded title. So let's earn it. Men aren't lonely enough. This is the comment that I see most often under videos of useless husbands, under videos of women being harassed in public by obnoxious drunk men, under videos talking about DV, abuse, and even the death of women at men's hands. We've talked about the male loneliness epidemic a lot on the internet, and I feel like whenever it's covered, it's usually only 1 or 2 causes that are addressed. Most often the red pill movement, but I feel like to really do this topic justice, we need to look much broader. So allow me to paint you a fuller picture and hopefully wake people up to the changes that need to be made. Hello, ladies, men, and non-binary friends. Welcome back. I don't want people to think that this is just going to be a shit talk session. I will come at this topic with as much compassion as I can muster, but I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to be giving you the facts. And for some people, they're not going to like what they hear. Doesn't make it any less true. Also, for the record, I don't hate men. My partner is a man. I'm sure many of you on this channel have seen him before. I love him very, very much. And he loves me very, very much. But we also both live in reality. We know that the vast majority of men are not protecting women. They are, in fact, perpetuating the violence against them or are complicit in it. Again, not every man, but far, 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 far too many men. Now, the male loneliness epidemic is well-trodden territory here on YouTube. I've even covered it in the past. And while I think it's important to talk about, there are so many issues that overlap with it that don't get as much attention because they are focused on women. They are women-centered issues. So yes, we are going to be talking about the male loneliness epidemic, but we are also going to be talking about the child-free movement, the rollback on abortion rights, divorce rates in the South, emotional and domestic labor, and a bunch of other stuff that will help us inform exactly how we got here and how to move forward. Let's get into it. But first, I'd like to thank Aura for sponsoring this video. I don't know about you, but I don't trust my government to protect my personal information online. It's alarming how much of our data is just out there for the world to see, and perhaps even scarier, just how much data brokers will pay for it. In fact, the global data broker market has been predicted to reach over $600 billion by 2030. I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to make it easier for them to know all my private info, or how many rare Shinx plushies I've ordered in the past 5 years. I'll warn you, it's a higher number than you think. Aura reached out and I tried their product and it has way more features than I expected. I'm so used to the shit that I pay for doing the bare minimum and having to pay extra for add-ons that I actually wanted to use. But Aura has literally everything you will need to protect your personal information online. Aura is the best VPN on the market, surpassing their competitors in protection and value. Aura protects your privacy by identifying data brokers, selling your info, and takes care of the hard part, automatically removing your info from these sites and keeping it off. They have your real-time credit score so they can freeze your credit, so no one can open credit cards in your name without you knowing. They can see if any of your emails or passwords have been leaked on the dark web. They have real-time alerts if your data has been compromised, and if anything does happen, Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance. And they have US fraud experts to help 24/7. There's a lot more, but I'll let you check it out for yourself. Go to aura.com/happypancake to try Aura 2 weeks for free. And that will give you plenty of time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data has been exposed. So stop leaving yourself vulnerable to data breaches. Click the link in my description or the QR code to get a 14-day free trial. Thank you to Aura for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you for giving it a try. I'm incredibly grateful to Aura. If you've been here from the beginning, you know how much I love them. They've been one of my biggest supporters through all of this. So give them some love. Now back to the video. The first thing we need to do is to look at the state of affairs. Let's start with divorce, specifically divorce in the South. Divorce rates in the Deep South are rising. Shocking. I know, like genuinely shocking. This goes against the narrative that we are constantly fed that dirty libs and leftists are the ones that don't respect the sanctity of marriage, but apparently that's not the case. Because as it stands, the divorce rate in every single southern state, Alabama, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and more, are higher than the divorce rates in New York State. 3/4 of southern states, 75% of southern states, were in the top half of divorce rates nationally. And 7 of the 16 southern states were in the highest quartile. Almost half of them were in the highest quartile of divorce rates in this country. And even though the national divorce rate has been drifting down over the past decade, the South stands out for its high divorce rates. And they're getting even higher, even as Southern politicians tout their traditional values and expectations of marriage, gender roles, and religion. But again, this is exactly the problem. You have all of these young Christian people, but predominantly little girls, who are told from the time they're old enough to listen that it's so important to get married and have children and raise them in the church. So you have these young people who are barely adults who don't fully know who they are, getting into lifelong commitments and choosing to have children before they're 25.
People didn't really care who I was marrying, Gonzalez, 40, an executive assistant and mother of one, said. It was just that I was getting married. Gonzalez, who shares custody of her daughter with her former husband, said she had been raised to believe that women should submit to their husbands. Growing up in fundamentalist Christian churches, dating was seen only as a path to marriage, the ultimate, quote, stamp of approval on a woman. Being married and being chosen by a man validates your existence as a woman or as a person, she said. And so it's kind of like the younger, the better. Whoever gets married first, they're, I guess, the most prized possession. Lena Sims was 24 years old when she met her husband. They worshipped at the same Pentecostal church and became friends. Immediately, she said the church pressure started. It was, oh, you guys like each other. You guys are friends. Why aren't you dating? And then we started dating, and of course, you're getting pushed into the next phase of life. When are you guys getting married? It did not take long after the wedding before it became clear to her that she and her husband were fundamentally incompatible. Their relationship was platonic, but she feared what would happen if she left. My identity was wrapped around being a wife and being a good housewife, which is very typical of the South. After 7 years of marriage, she asked for a divorce. While she has lost friends in her community, she says, she is now the happiest she has ever been. I don't feel like I'm having to put on an outward mask for people. I don't feel like I'm living a double life. In her office nearby, Frances Nolan, 66, a family lawyer, said that the dynamics of marriage in the South were changing as more women started working. They have to work because you can't support a family on one income anymore, she said. Then you're bossing people around all day, and then you come home and you have to cook dinner, do the laundry, and take your husband's orders for the rest of what your responsibilities are. It's never going to work. Unlike older generations, women today also have access to vast amounts of information on the internet, which shows them how different life can be.
When I was a teenager, I dated someone for 6 years, and 6 years is like 30 years for teenagers, right? I was convinced that this was the man I was going to marry. But after those 6 years, I realized I didn't want to be with him anymore. He was my first boyfriend. He was the person that I lost my virginity to. We had a lot of the same friends, and he had been through so many pivotal moments in my life. But by the end of those 6 years, we were just so different because we weren't teenagers anymore. We had grown up so much, and I realized that the person that I was as a teenager, I didn't really want to be as I entered my 20s and crept into adulthood, which, by the way, is totally normal. And the person you are in high school should be different from the person you are in your mid to late 20s. And thank God we broke up and moved on, because while a very, 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 very small percentage of people end up with their high school sweethearts or their first partner, I think it's much better to experience more of what the world has to offer and discover more parts of yourself before you decide who you want to be and who you want to settle down with, because you will have a stronger sense of self, which is why in states where people typically marry when they're older, the divorce rates are so much lower. So you have a lot of these women in southern states who are pressured to get married so young and realizing within a few years that they've made a horrible mistake. I'm not trying to victim blame at all here. I don't blame these women for trying to make their families and their communities proud, but it shouldn't surprise people that this isn't working out. You have young women and men who are seeing people who did everything right but are miserable. The facade is breaking, and social media has exacerbated this effect. And while yes, we've seen a rise in traditional values being promoted on social media, with trad wives making millions while cosplaying being a stay-at-home mom, there's also been a wave of women who have lived the trad wife life and spoken out after it didn't work out. Warning young women and telling them to build their own skills, get their own education, their own credit, their own money before entering into these relationships, because it can go very badly very fast.
If you are a young 14, 16, 21-year-old girl, listen up. I drove to the grocery store. I need to grab some milk and bread and a couple things, flipped open the bank app on my phone, and I've been sitting in my car crying ever since because I never have enough money. And why do I never have enough money? Because when I was a 19-year-old girl, I fell in love. My Mormon faith told me that I was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. I got married. I started having babies. I dropped out of college. I never had a career. My only jobs that I ever had in life were a waitress at the Olive Garden and managing a pretzel maker in a mall. So I found myself divorced at age 44 just 5 years ago, and within just a few months, I was living in my car. While he made about $250,000, he would eventually quit that job so that he wouldn't have to pay alimony and child support. He has only paid alimony one time ever in the 5 years since we've been divorced. Once ever. My first job after my divorce was $11 an hour, 4 hours a day, working as an assistant to a school teacher in an elementary school. And it never bothered me once that my financial security was dependent on that man being in love with me. I never realized that him liking me or not liking me or finding me sexy or attractive or interesting determined whether or not my children could eat. We have to make this stop. Raise your daughters to be financially independent. Focus on their futures and educations just as much as you focus on your sons.
I have so many regrets about being a stay-at-home mom, especially now that I'm going through this divorce from my husband. But one of the most heart-wrenching regrets about it is how me being a stay-at-home mom and turning over the responsibility for my basic needs, housing, clothing, food, the things that a human being needs to survive, turning that over to another adult and trusting that person to basically take care of me in this way. Like, what a gesture of trust that was on my part as a very independent woman prior to marriage. The initial feeling and idea that I had never to trust a man was right.
To all of those trad wives who think that this world is perfect, it is not. Right now, I am in a position that I don't wish upon anybody. I have been out of the workplace for over 20 years. Protect your future. And what I mean by that is get a prenup, a postnup, whatever it is legally that you need to get to ensure that you are financially okay in the event that your husband decides to leave for a mistress, just like mine.
Let's check in with the kids. According to the Pew Research Center, the percentage of 12th grade girls who say they want to be wives has dropped 22% in the past 10 years, going from 83% to 61%. The percentage of boys that want to get married has dropped as well, but only by 2%, going from 76 to 74, meaning that based on this poll, boys are more likely to want to get married than girls, and even less of them say it's very likely that they will have children, capping out at under 50%. And of course, this is a massive shift over the past 10 years, but just keep that in the back of your head. Boys want to get married more than girls right now. Also might have to do with boys being shithead red pillars in their classrooms, but this feels like a good enough segue to talk about the child-free movement. Mostly women showcasing their child-free lives, traveling the world, either alone or with their partner, being supportive aunties, or even just enjoying the peace and quiet of a child-free home with their pets. And you have people who are offended by these child-free people simply existing and enjoying their life. Recently, there was a woman who came on TikTok and said that child-free people are on vacation 24/7, which is ridiculous. Every person has responsibilities and struggles that are equally valid. Many of us have pets, family, friends. Some of us have aging parents. Some of us are chronically ill. Some of us are dealing with financial struggles, terrible work environments. Some of us are serving our communities. Some of us are working crazy hours at our jobs. And she rightfully got a bunch of backlash to this. I'm not going to dogpile on her, because ultimately what she's doing is underestimating the everyday struggles of just being a person in this world, or claiming that you are the only person that has a right to complain because you have children. And I do understand, like, the core of what she's saying is like, hey, children typically make your life more difficult, which, like, duh. Did you not know that when you had kids? That's part of the reason why many people just stay child-free. Why are you dunking on people for not doing the thing that you opted into? Like, Didn't you choose this? And this is hardly the first time that our society has been adamant on weirdly shaming child-free people, specifically child-free women. The culture of America, but more specifically within Christianity, it is expected that everyone has kids or is at least interested in having kids, despite the economy, their own expectations for their own life, or personal reasons or whatever. And we're seeing these child-free women in particular, because let's be real, most people don't give a fuck about child-free men. But with child-free women, they are a challenge to the propaganda of the system and the society that we grew up with. They challenge that. And for traditionalists, their existence as child-free people is viewed as a threat. That is why this attack on child-free women has persisted so aggressively, and will continue to persist, as being child-free becomes more commonplace, which I'm sure it will. The good news is that there are more people who are ending up child-free, whether it be for financial reasons or just simply because they want to opt out of it. And hopefully this will even the playing fields of public discourse as being child-free becomes more commonplace. Now, the hostility towards child-free women isn't just societal. There are absolutely individual women who are genuinely jealous of the freedom that child-free women have and the lives that they live. But that's not really what this video is about. We're going to be talking more about the systems that we're kind of all subjected to. A 2025 Michigan State University study found that the share of non-parents who say they never want children has more than doubled in the past 10 years. We found that the percentage of non-parents who don't want any children rose from 14% in 2002 to 29% in 2023. During that same period, the percent of non-parents who plan to have children in the future fell from 79% to 59%. Pew Research in 2024 asked adults under 50 who say they're unlikely to have kids why. 57% said a major reason is simply, I just don't want to, which, you know, respect. The second most popular reason was they wanted to focus on other things, followed by the concern about the state of the world, couldn't afford to raise a child, concerns about the environment, haven't found or didn't find the right partner, they don't really like children, negative experiences with their own family growing up, a spouse or partner who doesn't or didn't want to have children. Abortion also has to be a part of this conversation, just inherently. With the rollback of abortion rights, the risk associated with having children has increased in many states across the nation. You have states like Alabama, Idaho, Texas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and South Carolina that have implemented strict bans on abortion, with penalties often aimed at doctors or medical care providers. And there are a slew of other states with gray area type abortion laws that have made doctors hesitant to give women life-saving medical care that they desperately need. The overturning of Roe v. Wade has opened the floodgates to what are called fetal personhood laws. This goes beyond abortion laws and allows certain states to persecute women for not behaving properly while pregnant, and has led to various criminal charges, with over 200 women facing criminal charges over pregnancy in the past year alone. Lourdes Rivera, the president of Pregnancy Justice, says, if we focus only on abortion laws, we miss a crucial part of the picture in the fact that pregnant individuals are being criminalized for allegedly endangering their own pregnancies, for pregnancy loss, and in some cases for conduct related to abortion. What's driving pregnancy criminalization is the expansion of fetal personhood. Pregnancy-related prosecutions don't generally charge crimes that on the face of the criminal statute have anything whatsoever to do with pregnancy, said Wendy Bach, a professor at the University of Tennessee College of Law. Instead, using the idea of fetal personhood, or more specifically, the idea that the fetus can be the victim of a crime perpetrated by the pregnant person, they use that theory to charge general crimes. Basically, they take a charge that normally would be a pretty minor charge and elevate it once it's being associated with a fetus, because the fetus personhood laws essentially account for that. So you could have a minor drug charge that is now associated with like attempted murder because you were pregnant at the time. And instead of offering programs that would help people and allow people to reach out for help with their addiction, with their issues, it's now preventing those people from getting help because they are now at risk of being criminally charged for that on a much higher level than they would be if they weren't pregnant. Does that make sense? In July, an Oklahoma court exonerated a woman who had been charged with a felony child neglect in 2020 after her son tested positive for marijuana at birth. Prosecutors pursued the case even though her baby was born healthy and she'd had a doctor-approved state license to legally use medical marijuana to treat severe morning sickness during the pregnancy. Brian Hermanson, an Oklahoma Republican DA who's prosecuted dozens of women in his district in similar circumstances, used fetal personhood language in his legal Argument. Marijuana is an illegal drug under Oklahoma law unless the person is consuming the marijuana holds a medical marijuana license. Unborn babies cannot hold such a license, Hermanson wrote in a court filing. The defendant admitted to smoking marijuana throughout her pregnancy, knowing that her unborn baby was being exposed to the harmful effects of the marijuana smoke. Also, again, this was prescribed by her doctor, so shut the fuck up, you're not a doctor. The Pregnancy Justice Report also documented 5 cases in which allegations specifically mentioned abortion. One was brought under the state abortion statute that has since been repealed. The other 4 cases were charged as homicide, child neglect, or abuse of a corpse. In those 2 cases in which homicide was charged, the defendants allegedly visited abortion clinics or took pills, and the abortion was successful. And with these institutions of fetal personhood laws, it will lead to more women unintentionally becoming pregnant, probably being stuck in abusive or toxic relationships, not being able to seek help because there's no help for them. And for some women, it's not worth the fucking risk to even be in a relationship in the first place. Even if you do get pregnant and you want a child, the dangers don't end there. Maternal mortality in the US is fucking abysmal.
Maternal mortality rate in the United States has increased by nearly 30% since the year 2000 to a rate of around 18.7 individuals per 100,000 persons. We currently have a maternal mortality rate triple than that of Sweden, Japan, the Netherlands, Germany, the UK, and France. The current maternal mortality rate, which is the mortality rate for individuals carrying a pregnancy to term, is higher than the mortality rate of a police officer in the line of duty. It is also currently higher than a construction worker on the job. It's also higher for individuals who are installing power lines. But what I haven't mentioned about the maternal mortality rate in the United States is that that is just the rate for all women. When you break it out into respective categories, the maternal mortality rate for Black women and Indigenous women is nearly twice as high. For Black women, the maternal mortality rate sits at around 49 individuals per 100,000 people. For Indigenous women, is around 42 individuals per 100,000 people. To give you some context, the maternal mortality rate for Black women is 3 times as high as for white women. To equate that to our employment statistics, a police officer would have to work in the line of duty for over 3 years before their mortality rate came closer to that for a Black woman carrying one single pregnancy. I think people, especially in the United States, discount the inherent risk it is to be pregnant and to carry a pregnancy to term, specifically in this country. And is pregnancy and having a kid a beautiful and wonderful experience for a lot of people? Yes, but it also puts a lot of strain on individuals who are carrying that pregnancy's body. Not to mention the fact that if you are denied the ability to terminate a pregnancy, you have a higher odds of you and that child entering into poverty 6 months after denial than those individuals who were able to terminate their pregnancy. And as we know, higher rates of poverty are associated with higher rates of inadequate housing, higher rates of malnutrition, and higher rates of lack of access to health care. So ultimately, the decision to not be able to choose when you want to have a pregnancy and being forced to carry a pregnancy to term will lead, based on the data, to negative health outcomes for the children resulting from that unwanted pregnancy.
And this is a conversation that more men need to be having because most of them know fuck all about pregnancy. I can understand women not wanting to risk their life just to have children, especially when they can do things like adopting. But most men do want to have children. So I can understand not wanting to take that risk by being in a relationship with someone who wants kids, or just wanting to avoid men altogether. Because in some cases, it is worse than death. Yes, we're going to talk about Adriana Smith. By now, you all probably know the story of Adriana Smith. She was the Black woman in Georgia who was forced to give birth when she was brain dead. Smith, who was already the mother to a 7-year-old boy, was about 8 weeks pregnant at the time when she was declared brain dead from multiple blood clots in her brain. She was forced to be kept alive on life support because of Georgia's ban on abortion after 6 weeks of gestation, despite the family's wishes to end life support. She gave birth to a 1-pound baby Chance on June 13th, 2025, via emergency cesarean section. It's been 6 months since he was born, and Newkirk updated followers on her GoFundMe account, saying claiming that the baby was only 11 pounds and will not be coming home anytime soon because he has underdeveloped lungs. And throughout this, the family is still having to pay for all of this medical care. They don't have a choice. There is no help from the state. If you'd like to help with this family's medical expenses, I have their GoFundMe linked below, because this is so fucking horrible, especially after having lost their daughter. This is dystopian and fucking nightmarish, and I doubt this will be the last time we see something like this. Now we're gonna get to the part that men really don't want to hear.
Pew Research found that in heterosexual relationships where the husband is the primary earner, but both are working, the wife spent more than twice as many hours on caregiving per week, 9.4 hours compared to the 4.4 hours the husband spent, and more than 5 times as many hours on housework per week, 7.3 hours compared to 1.4 hours. In relationships where the wife is the primary earner, the wife on average is still doing more caregiving and housework than the husband per week, 6.4 hours of caregiving versus 5 hours, and 4.8 hours of housework versus 2.8 hours. Even when the woman is the primary earner, the breadwinner, and typically working more hours, she is still the one expected to do the majority of domestic labor in these heterosexual relationships. Then there's cognitive labor, the mental load. A 2024 study in Archives of Women's Mental Health found that women do a more disproportionate share of the cognitive household labor. So this is planning, tracking, remembering, anticipating. Birthdays, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, soccer games, recitals, concerts, dinners, presents for kids. Now this extra cognitive load has led to... Oh, Shem's home. Hey.
You recording?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Hi, baby. I'm good. Oh, your lips are so cold. Oh, you're
Your
so
lips
cold.
are so hydrated.
They are. I do have a gloss on. Mwah. See, that's a real man. This extra cognitive load has been linked to higher depression, stress, burnout, and relationship dissatisfaction for mothers. Wives, on average, are not just doing more physically. They are thinking more, they are planning more, and it is making them fucking sick. Men tend to lean on women for their emotional support, emotional maintenance, and emotional validation. Men aren't having these same conversations with each other.
And this phenomenon actually has a name coined by Stanford University. It's called man-keeping. Man-keeping describes the emotional labor women end up doing in heterosexual relationships. It goes beyond remembering birthdays or coordinating social plans. It means being your partner's one-man support system, managing his stress, interpreting his moods, holding his hand through feelings he won't share with anyone else. All of it unpaid, unacknowledged, and often unreciprocated. Plenty of women are no longer interested in that dynamic. According to Pew Research, only 38% of single women in the US are currently looking for a relationship. Among single men, that number jumps to 61%. The gap says a lot. Women aren't opting out of love, they're opting out of being someone's therapist with benefits. The Guardian calls man-keeping a modern extension of emotional labor, one that turns a partner into a life coach. This isn't about avoiding vulnerability, it's about refusing to carry someone else's emotional weight while getting little to nothing in return. And there's nothing wrong with feeling this way. Angelica Ferreira, a postdoctoral fellow at the Clayman Institute, says, "This is the labor that women take on to shore up losses in men's social networks and reduce the burden of this isolation on families, on the heterosexual bond itself, and on men. The barriers that men are facing in their relationships have the potential to expand women's labor on men's behalf. Although men's loneliness hurts men, their struggles can become a burden for women as well." Ferreira argues that men's loneliness, a problem thought to be individual, is in fact structural. She identifies man-keeping as an important and overlooked component of patriarchal social structures, in which case, recognizing and naming this form of gendered labor may be important for making women's emotional work more visible and hopefully more equal.
And if women are managing your friendships, telling you to call your brother, call your friends, wish them a happy birthday, if women are managing your mental health, asking you how you're doing, telling you you seem off, breaking down what's really going on in your life, and if women are managing your daily life, don't forget your doctor's appointment, don't forget your dentist appointment, then you actually aren't building any of those skills yourself as an adult, as a person existing in society. You're relying on the women in your life to take care of it for you. So when those relationships collapse, or if they never exist in the first place, men are left with no deep friendships, no emotional toolkit, no practices in maintaining those connections, and no real ability to manage their own life. The underlying issue here is that men don't value domestic and emotional labor.
Girls, if your guy just keeps growing, girls, Can you please tell me why some girls don't want to be stay-at-home moms? And yes, I understand using your degree for a little bit and like wanting to actually pursue something you're passionate about, but being a stay-at-home mom where you can like make food, take care of your kids, take care of your husband, hold Bible studies, do Pilates, I don't freaking know, do whatever you want the whole day while getting provided for, why would you not want that?
If it's so great, then you do it. You be a stay-at-home dad. You could go to Pilates, you could have a little Bible study with your buds. Doesn't that sound great? Why don't you do that? You could take the back seat while your wife goes out and fulfills all of her aspirations, her career goals, and you can stay at home, cook, clean, and raise the children. It's very telling to me in the second half of this video, you say, fellas, why don't you want a stay-at-home wife? You can have food on the table for you when you get home, and she's not stressed because she doesn't have to work. Raising human beings, in my opinion, is the hardest job on the planet. It's a 24/7 job, no breaks, no days off. On top of all of that, your husband doesn't even view it as legitimate labor. Yet they don't want to do it. They claim it's such this great thing that you should want. Come on, guys, put your dreams, put your career goals to the side. Raise the kids, be my maid, cook for me. Then why don't you want to do it? Now, am I saying there aren't people out there that fulfills them? Sure. That can happen. You do you. But the biggest lie that religion teaches people is that because you are born a certain sex, because you have certain genitalia, they already know automatically what you should want. They know automatically what is going to fulfill you, and that is a lie.
We're going to talk about the Vogue article. The rise of social media has encouraged people around the world to share their lives, including their relationships with their family and their loved ones. And every month or so, this has led to relationships being analyzed by the masses for their questionable behavior. Either the husband posting something and thinking that it's funny, but it's actually cruel, or a situation where both in the couple are thinking that this is funny or cute, but looking from the outside, it's toxic and embarrassing. Either way, the embarrassment is typically on the burden of the woman who presumably chose him, and will lead to an outpouring of comments telling the woman to leave her boyfriend or husband, to varying outcomes. But the overarching effect of people in relationships offering this intimate look into their lives has single people thinking, you know what? Maybe it's not so bad that I'm single. It's demystified relationships a lot. Most of us would rather be single than in a toxic relationship. This phenomenon was explored in the article by Vogue. Is having a boyfriend embarrassing now? The author suggests that public boyfriend content can feel cringe to many women now. Relationships sort of used to be this badge of honor in a male-centered world, showing that you made it, this aspirational status that is increasingly viewed as being embarrassing. What has changed culturally isn't just the perception of men, but the value of being in a romantic relationship with one. It doesn't have the same social currency that it used to. And for many, being single is simply more desirable than having a boyfriend. And relationships with men aren't worth the sacrifices to their independence and freedom, especially when there's this extra fucking baggage associated with it. Critics will often label these women as childless cat ladies that are miserable and depressed, or ugly women who will never be loved. But if you take a look at these women's pages, they're usually spending time with their friends, their family, maybe even traveling the world. They're not rejecting love by any means. They're rejecting romantic relationships with men as traditional views on marriage become demystified. And again, this is of course perpetuated by social media.
The reason why having a boyfriend is embarrassing is because y'all came on social media and showed us that it was. If everyone would have kept their low standards to themselves and didn't show us the things they were enduring at home just so they can have a man in their life, people wouldn't think it was embarrassing. But not these videos of your boyfriends and your husbands packing you dog lunches. That video of that one woman who asked her husband if she died, like, would he get remarried? And he's like, no, if you died, I would just get a maid and a prostitute. Like, you could have kept that to yourself. Being in relationships with men who you have nothing in common with, coming on the internet and telling us that your boyfriend doesn't shower or wash his ass, seeing the blatant incompetence of these men that y'all are spending your lives with and having children with. Of course that shit is embarrassing, because y'all keep getting online and showing us how embarrassing it is.
Vogue just posted an article saying having a boyfriend is embarrassing. I think for men, this is a wake-up call. We provide no benefit. We are no longer the priority. In fact, we're probably a burden to them. We need to realize having a girlfriend is a privilege, and our duty is to raise them up and make them the most successful version of themselves. That might mean doing the laundry and picking up the dishes. It might mean working harder to support them so they can go back to school. It might mean just focusing on ourselves more to be the best versions of ourselves, to inspire them to want to do the same. I think a healthy relationship involves both people raising each other up to be the best versions of themselves and doing whatever they can to support that person to be able to do that. Right now, I don't think men are doing that. I think men don't really provide a benefit. We need to figure out how to provide that benefit so we are no longer embarrassing.
First of all, it definitely means doing the dishes and picking up the laundry, but I guess he's got the spirit. And what I appreciate about this video is that he is clear that this responsibility is on men to fix. The fact that, quote, having a boyfriend is embarrassing now is ultimately about women's dissatisfaction with men. Many women don't need men to be the provider because they're already doing that themselves. It's not realistic for men to have that expectation that they're a catch simply because they're a man. In order for you to qualify, you have to have that dazzle, that sparkle, that X factor. And for men, this has been a shock. They are no longer guaranteed affection or support or stability. They have to provide that for themselves first. Women are reevaluating what they want out of life: autonomy, emotional support, and even companionship, but on their own terms. It's not dictated by patriarchal or traditional values. Well, it's finally time to talk about the Red Pill movement. Ah, the Red Pill movement. If we're talking about a topic that has been covered millions of times, the Red Pill movement is certainly up there. Most of you know enough about this that I can keep this pretty brief, but it is very necessary to include in this conversation about male loneliness. The basic tenets of the Red Pill movement are that modern society is against men. Feminism has irreparably harmed our society and men's position in it. Women will only date higher status men, but when they define higher status, it's things like being over 6 feet, being ripped, being wealthy, etc., which historically and statistically women care less about because they're more focused on emotional compatibility. But again, we'll get into that later. They believe traditional masculinity has been eroded by wokeism and that is a mistake, and that men must adopt certain behaviors to be alphas, to be aggressive and volatile and emotionally constipated. My words, not theirs. Because this content is often packaged as self-help or men's advice or dating strategies, it can subtly pull in young, insecure, and isolated men who are struggling to connect, whether it be through dating or work or friendships, which has sent them down this rabbit hole of red pill messaging and becoming more hostile, violent, dismissing empathy and emotional vulnerability as weakness. For someone who's lonely, lacking emotional support, or unsure of how to connect with people, especially women, this narrative can feel very comforting because it appeals to their deepest, ugliest desires. That not only am I not wrong, I am the victim. It's someone else's fault. I am a victim of our corrupt society. I am a victim of shallow, superficial whores. I am a victim because this world no longer caters to me in the way that it once did. It explains away the terrible circumstances that men find themselves in without them having to dig any deeper, without looking at how capitalism has hurt all of us, how the patriarchy has hurt all of us, how their misogyny has probably done more to alienate the women in their lives than anything else. And it gives men this sense of superficial confidence and superiority while belonging to a group and being given this new sense of purpose. The feeling of being this righteous warrior for taking what's yours, when in actuality, by being so adversarial to women, they are only sabotaging themselves. Men are no longer entitled to the attention and affection of women. So some men have become fucking monsters, dehumanizing women, wishing harm on them, harassing them, assaulting them, killing them. Men blaming women for their failings and their loneliness because apparently it is the burden of women to take care of men that they don't know. The lack of critical thinking and biblical levels of deflection are quite baffling here. And men saying horrible things about women and treating them badly in public and private with such reckless abandon has led to what? It's led to women avoiding them at all fucking costs. Shocker. The rise of red pill content and its perpetuation of sexism and violence against women has absolutely made women more selective regarding their romantic partners or swearing off of men entirely. It is a safety issue. In my opinion, this was the straw that broke the camel's back and has led to this continued conversation about the male loneliness epidemic. So, Why exactly do women need this? Why do women need to swear off men? Why are they flocking to this movement and pursuing companionship with each other rather than men? Because women have been treated as subhuman by men for centuries. So what exactly is changing now? I don't mean to be facetious. I genuinely want to ask this question. Why are so many women choosing to stay single? The short answer is because they fucking can. Women can open their own credit cards. They have their own bank accounts. They can vote. They can own property, they can get a degree, they can live similar lives to men without having to rely on men. And women are only opting into relationships when they really truly want to, which is how it should be. No one should feel forced to get married just to survive. And the long answer as to why women are choosing to stay single is all the shit that came earlier in this fucking video. And the critiques that I often see are that it's difficult being vulnerable with men. That being vulnerable is a difficult conversation, you get made fun of because vulnerability is fucking clowned on in spaces dominated by men. And yes, that is correct. But then those flaws and failings are somehow immediately tasked for women. The men in my life have no problem being vulnerable with me, but that doesn't automatically mean that they can be vulnerable with their friends. The problem doesn't go away until you address it within your own friend groups. And the fact is, it has to be addressed by men in those groups of men. Unfortunately, we're living in a reality where there are men who simply don't listen to women. They won't listen to advice unless it comes from a man's mouth. They don't take advice from women, they take advice from men. There are men who literally will not change unless another man calls them out on it. And that's the reality. The labor has to be on men.
The reason that I have no patience and I spare no anger in the discussion of men caring about women's issues and thus men asking women to care about their mental health and their issues and blah, 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 is because to this day, in every video I've made about it, I just cannot get these men to admit that there's a problem that men are perpetuating. They just won't do it. They will always do what about, and they can never just let us sit with the fact that there is a severe problem, sexual problem, harassment problem, bullying problem, body shaming problem that men perpetuate on women. Who is most trafficked? What gender, let me say, is most often the one that is doing the sex trafficking? Answer fast. I'm waiting. Recently, I saw a post about a teacher getting fired because she was molesting her teenage student, and every single male comment I saw, oh, he's not actually a victim, this was his dream, this is all he wanted. So you guys don't even care either. You guys don't even care. You don't even care about your own issues that you want me to care about. Because it's never been about the fact that you want these issues fixed. You want women to be the caretakers. Regardless of where the argument goes, they will still just not say that there's a major issue that men have with what percentage of school shooters are men? What percentage of shootings in general are men? What percentage of family annihilators are men? What percentage of domestic violence is against women? It's absurd that you want me to address your sadness when I have to sit here every day and hear another story from a woman saying, oh, I was violently raped and now my rapist is avoiding jail time. Because you guys won't even call that out as shitty. You guys won't even say that's bad. Because I know it's not every single man doing that. But have you guys ever heard about the bystander in the little bullying situation that they used to talk to us about at school? You're the bystander. You do nothing.
And this is the most frustrating thing because this is a reality that cis women and queer people and trans people have to put up with. It's this violence and harassment and from cis straight men. Because we know it's not all men. But the constant deflection from the problem at hand is why it isn't getting anywhere. It's why we don't want to fucking talk to you when you're a fucking stranger walking on the sidewalk. It's why we don't want to connect with random strangers at bars. Because we don't know, is this the person that's gonna fucking jump me tonight? Is this the person that's gonna assault me tonight? It's why it has continued as a problem. It's because it hasn't been addressed within those male friend groups. It's why it has continued to be a problem for us and for you, because you won't admit that there's a problem and you won't take steps to fucking change.
This video is for the men who say not all men, because look, you are technically correct in that if we look at the population of men, there are men who don't commit violence against women, and then it is a small minority of men who do. You are thinking of this wrong. You're missing a really important piece, because it's not just that you are either one of these things or you're the other. A better way to think of it is as a continuum, where at the very top, we have the mass offenders, the serial offenders, sort of the worst of the worst. Yeah, most men are not that. And then there are also men who are one-time offenders. They still commit acts of violence against women, but not over and over again, not repeatedly. Both of these types of men would fall into that category of men who commit violence against women, but clearly they're not the same. And there are also plenty of men in the middle between them. But you have to understand that you also might fall into the category where, like, yeah, you don't commit acts of violence against women, but You do things that actively encourage offenders. You make jokes about when a friend of yours says like, hey, I hooked up with this chick who was really drunk last night. You give them a high five. That is actively encouraging offenders to continue to offend. And you are part of the problem, even though you're not part of that category of men who commit acts of violence against women. Below that, we have the men who just ignore the offenders completely. Someone makes a sexist joke, they tell you about something bad that they've done, something that puts them in that red category, and you just sort of brush it off. You don't make a big deal of it. You ignore the fact that those offenders exist and continue to offend. And yeah, that's not actively encouraging them to continue to offend, but it's implicitly saying that what they did is okay, and it's not. Then there are plenty of men who are just ignorant to the fact that this is a big problem for women. They don't understand just how big of a problem, just how many women experience violence on a basically daily basis. And I would argue that they're part of the problem too. Next up, we have men who they're not ignorant to the problems of women, but they do take steps to actively avoid the men who are. They have a friend who tells them about something they did, and they said, you know what, I'm not going to hang out with this guy anymore. He's a problem. He's not a good guy. I'm not going to be friends with him. That's at least a step in the right direction. But if you're not actively discouraging that person from doing those things again, they might take your break of contact with them again as implicit encouragement to continue doing what they're doing. So really the only men that women see as helping to solve this problem are the ones who are actively taking steps to stop offenders. And if you're doing that in private, if you're pulling your buddy aside and talking to him one-on-one, there's no way that women are going to know that you're doing that. So it's really only the men who are doing that publicly who women are going to look at as not part of the problem. And one other very important piece to this is that the distribution of men is not just a flat straight line like this. It's a bell curve. So yes, it's a very small minority of men who are really, really terrible, but there are a lot more men who, do bad things, but not super often. And then there's this big middle piece where most men are still encouraging offenders to offend, even though they're not actually doing any of the offending themselves. It's through their action or inaction. They are explicitly or implicitly encouraging men who do commit violence to continue to commit violence. They are part of the problem too.
Even now, our rights are not assured. If men were given essentially free access to women and unbelievable power over them years ago and treated us like shit, why would they be expected to learn more when we give them full access to our time, life, and bodies without critique? No, these men are being raised in a patriarchal Christian-dominated country where women are not respected, and now that we don't need them to survive anymore, there's very few reasons to actually be with a man, because the risk outweighs the benefits. The data is right there. And that's not even including all of the creepy, weird harassment and stories that everyone has of men being inappropriate, scary, or violent on dates. The real question we should be asking is, why would any woman willingly sign up to be with men? Usually it has to do with societal or parental pressure. If someone is a victim of abuse, maybe they're caught in the cycle of loving someone who is abusing them. Or that unicorn option that they really truly love this person if this person is good and healthy for them. So what do I mean when I say men aren't lonely enough? We still see women getting trapped in abusive, toxic relationships. We still see women in relationships with men who use weaponized incompetence to shift the responsibility on their partner. We still see men who refuse to cut their buddies off for or harassing women. We still see men who blame women they don't know for the problems that they have in their life. And I'm talking about men as a demographic. I'm talking about men as a system under the patriarchy. I do not mean I want men to suffer. Loneliness is brutal. It is already killing people. What I mean by this is that men as a group have not yet experienced collectively enough to force a transformation in how they manage their friendships, their relationships, and their own emotional state. Right now, the pattern looks like this. You have boys young through their teens and their early 20s being told that they are already allowed to opt out of emotional skills. Boys don't cry. Feelings are weakness. That's some fucking girly shit. That's fucking gay. Devaluing or laughing or demonizing anything that could be seen as feminine, which leads to their misogyny and devaluing women as they get older. In adulthood, they lean on their girlfriends, their wives, their moms, and female friends to be their social and emotional infrastructure. And when women burn out, when they go child-free, divorce them, or just don't engage with them at all, men hit a wall of loneliness that they are not equipped to handle. If you're a man watching this and you feel called out, that's good. I want you to sit with that. Don't run to the comments and say not all men, because that's fucking cheap and lame. And I know you're not fucking learning anything. I know you're not engaging with this critically. I want you to use that discomfort to make a change. If you've been watching Red Pill content, you know all about making changes, taking advice. Here's some advice from an actual woman in a happy relationship who can fucking help you. Use this discomfort as data as you are mapping your emotional landscape. Because here's what the change actually fucking looks like. First, you need to build out your own emotional infrastructure. You need to either find friends that you can actually tell the truth to and speak to honestly and vulnerably, or you need to rehabilitate the current group of friends that you have. Get comfortable with saying things like, I'm scared, I'm upset, I'm lonely, I feel ashamed, I need help. It's going to be uncomfortable, but once you start building those skills, it's going to lead to a much happier life and a more balanced emotional state. Stop outsourcing all these vulnerable conversations and putting that shit on the women in your life. Next, deconstruct your misogyny and your views on women. Now, this is a lifelong journey. Even as a beautiful woman, I still have to do sometimes. I have to deconstruct and I have to check in with my internalized misogyny because we are raised under this Christo-patriarchy, white supremacist capitalist bullshit. This is a lifelong journey, but there are steps that you can take. I have a bunch of resources listed below if you want to get started. But the easiest way to do this is to just start listening to women, not putting shit on them, but just listening to the women in your daily life. Listen to their struggles, what they're going through daily. Follow women on social media who actually talk about their experiences dating, their experiences living as a woman, the fears that they have in the current political climate in America. Bonus points if they're black women, because black women have to put up with a whole bunch of extra shit than white women do. Accounts linked in the description you should definitely follow. Incorporate women's discussions into your daily routine. YouTube, podcasts, they're everywhere. Feel free to subscribe here. If you do have women in your life, you can ask them, how can I be more sensitive to women's issues? How can I tune in? What are things that you're listening to? I want to be more involved. Number 3, if you are in a relationship right now, or if you are living with your family, take on the mental load. Take on the domestic labor. Doing a dish after somebody asks you to do it is not the same as owning a task. If you see dishes in the sink, just fucking do them. Don't say anything. Don't say, just tell me what to do. Learn what needs to be done and what is already being managed and step in so you can take that shit off of the shoulders of the women in your life. If you're a parent, learn the kids' schedules, learn the doctors' names, learn birthdays, learn when the bills need to be paid, and then act on them without being prompted. Tell your partner, hey, don't worry about it. I paid the electric bill for this month. Hey, don't worry about it. I'm taking little Jimmy to the fucking doctors later. Communicate, but don't wait to do the task until you are prompted to do so. Just fucking do it. Equal housework, equal childcare. As equal as you can get it. And communicate openly how you are feeling emotionally. Don't have your partner pulling teeth trying to pry out how you're feeling. I know this can be difficult for men because maybe they've never done it before, so they have trouble describing their emotions. Just try your best. It's like a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it's going to get, the easier it's going to get, but you have to start somewhere. 4, normalize men fucking checking each other. Check in on your friends. If somebody seems off, you've seemed kind of down. What's going on lately? What's going on with work? Are you seeing anybody? What's going on with your family? Little things like that. Those are like the basic questions that I feel like I never hear men ask each other. Show up for your friends when they're struggling. To maintain relationships requires you to be uncomfortable at certain points. That's across every relationship. And when your fucking buddies say some weird fucking shit or do some weird shit, call them out on it. Make them feel uncomfortable. Say, hey dude, that was a little fucking weird. That was a weird fucking thing you said. That was a weird fucking thing you did. Dude, they just want to be left alone. They're just having a good time. It's cool. We can do something over here. Anything to just protect the women in your area if your friends are being fucking creepy and weird. It's not funny. It's fucking scary for us. And I guess the whole overarching message of this is that it's not just one thing that is causing the male loneliness epidemic. We do not live in a vacuum. I say this all the time in all of my videos. It is very rarely one experience that will dictate a person's decisions. It's all sorts of factors
coalescing, overlapping. It's women coming to learn the realities of married life and pregnancy, and that it's not actually as romantic as we've been told. It's our rights being rolled back via abortion that is literally threatening our lives. It's patriarchal and traditional values that have been embedded in our lives in the most subtle of ways that we are now pushing back against. It's the rise of red pill content and men choosing to behave like fucking mongrels, and the deflecting of responsibility of male loneliness onto women instead of men taking steps to destigmatize emotional vulnerability in their spaces. So when I say men aren't lonely enough, I'm saying until men feel enough discomfort to change their lives, enough emptiness to learn how to connect, and enough responsibility to carry the share of their fucking load, we're going to keep seeing the same stories play out. Nothing changes if nothing changes. As always, oh my god, the sun has gone down. As always, I have Rawan's GoFundMe linked below. She was supposed to attend university this year, but Israel bombed her home and her school out of existence. The first 2 episodes of season 2 of my D&D campaign, Westerly Academy, are out now. Episode 3 is going live on December 28th. I would love for you to tune in. For those of you that don't know, this is my D&D campaign for Palestine, so all the ad revenue from my campaign goes directly to Palestinian families, so by literally watching D&D, you are helping the people of Palestine. Make sure to check out our sponsor Aura, linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Bye! Very special thank you to Bagel's dad, Derek, Anonymous, Tiny Axes, and Robin Fellows.